Shalom, everyone. This is Doug with the Awakened by Yahuwah Fellowship Group. I'm with my brother Dennis, my sister Shoshana, and my sister Sally, and our sister Sadie has joined us today. So we will be continuing in the book of Revelations, chapter 8, and I will start us off here, and let's see what translation I will be using. I will be using the Restored Name King James. And so here we go, Revelations chapter 8. And when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in Shamayim about the space of half an hour. And I saw the seven Malachim which stood before Yahuwah, and to them were given seven trumpets. And another Malachim came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer. And there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all the set apart ones upon the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense which came with the prayers of the set apart ones ascended up before Yahuwah out of the Malachim's hand. And the Malachim took the censer and filled it with fire of the altar and cast it into the earth. And there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. And the seven Malachim which had seven trumpets prepared themselves to sound. The first Malachim sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth, and the third part of trees was burned up, and all green grass was burned up. And the second Malachim sounded, and as it were a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became blood. And the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died. And the third part of the ships were destroyed. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from Shamayim, or the heavens, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star is called Wormwood. And the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. And the fourth Malachim sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, so as the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. And I beheld and heard a Malachim flying through the middle of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the three Malachim which are yet to sound. That is the end of Revelations chapter 8. And let me unmute you guys. There we go. So.
Okay, a lot of people, Doug, I've been looking at YouTube, and there's so many people saying that, two or three of the messengers have sounded, or five of the messengers have sounded. Let me make it clear, according to the scriptures, none of the messengers sounded. If they had, then we would have seen these things happening, and they haven't. Even if the first messenger had sounded, we would have seen a third of the trees and grass burned up, and it hasn't happened. Some people are saying, oh, well, we know the second messenger sounded because of Fukushima has destroyed a third of the creatures in the sea.
But the first part.
But exactly, the first part hasn't happened, and there's been no great mountain burning with fire hitting the sea, and The sea has not become blood. And what about the third of the ships being destroyed? That has not happened. So
Not unless they put up their blue beam from their.
we can't jump to conclusions when we see one little piece of a puzzle. Exactly. That's my point on that.
Yeah, plus the fact in Revelation prior to this chapter, you have us being sealed with Yahuwah's seal before the grass gets burned up. So if you don't have people being sealed, Yahuwah's not going to have all this stuff happen before we're sealed. So chronologically, even, it wouldn't make sense that that's happened already. So if you read Revelations in chronological order, like from chapter 1 all the way to 22, a lot of it is in chronological order, the events, like the sealing of the 144,000, because in that chapter, it precedes this chapter and even says, do not harm the green grass until your people are sealed with the seal of our Elohim, our Elohim. So without that seal on our foreheads of Yahuwah's, the green grass is not going to get destroyed yet. So we know just that as a fact that hasn't happened yet. And meaning that this whole chapter hasn't happened yet. And another sign is that there's supposed to be hail coming from heaven, fiery hail mixed with blood. That definitely hasn't happened yet. And also the star that falls from heaven, that's talking about a Malachim, a messenger, because in Revelations chapter 1, verse 20, it tells you that stars are Malachim. They're synonymous. And so to understand, and that's another thing I wanted to show with the viewers. I'm going to share my screen real quick with my Bible Discovery app. If you go to Revelations chapter 1, verse 20, it tells you what stars are. Stars are not gas planets. They are not what we've been told they are. It says in the Restored Name King James, the mystery of the 7 stars, which you saw in my right hand, and the 7 gold candlesticks. The 7 stars are the Malachim of the 7 assemblies. And the 7 candlesticks, which you saw, are the 7 assemblies. So right there, it tells you the symbology of stars in the scriptures. So stars are always Malachim. So when it says a star was called wormwood and it fell from the heavens, it's talking about some angel, some Malachim, some messenger literally fell from heaven into the water and made the waters bitter. That definitely hasn't happened yet.
Right.
So yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff that hasn't happened in this chapter. I don't think any of it has happened yet, in my opinion, in my view.
No, and at the very end, all of the stars are going to fall to the earth. And if they were big globs of gas burning at billions of degrees, I don't think the earth could take that. I think it would be obliterated if one fell to the earth of those.
Yeah, we wouldn't have to worry about a tribulation period or the day of Yahuwah if they're gas planets. We would all be dead if stars or gas planets are falling to the earth all at once, because Yahushua says that the heavens will recede like a scroll, and all the stars, the key word there is all, are going to fall down to the earth. So that, that's pretty scary if they're gas planets, that you would have no human being alive after that. So, it doesn't even make sense that that's what stars are. And
we have been lied to about everything, and that includes where we live. We do not live on a ball that orbits a sun gas star. No, we do not. And it can be proven, it has been proven, if you'll just look at some of the YouTube videos that the flat earthers have put out. There's some really incredible videos with absolute proof that we don't live on a ball.
And that the creation revolves around the earth.
Yes. I mean, we can look at
Geocentrism. That's the introduction, is realizing that we live on a plane that is geocentric, that is a universe that's geocentric, that everything revolves around the earth. It's not everything revolves around the sun. That's a lie.
Right. The heliocentric model is, let's throw that one out.
And that's my introduction to how I became a Messianic Israelite that believes in flat earth, because there's so much proof in the scriptures alone. You don't even have to do much research that we live in a geocentric world. It says that the earth cannot be moved. It's established. It's firm. It cannot be moved. The sun moves. The sun sets. What does the word set mean? Go up and down. So, even if you read, if you're honest with the text, you'll understand that even the Bible alone will tell you that we're in a geocentric world, and that the earth is pretty much the only landmass that Yahuwah has people living on. And what we know as planets are not planets; they're stars, they're Malachim. And I was just telling Sadie about that before the recording, that's what Jude talks about, because you research the Latin word planetes, it's defined as wanderer. Well, if you read the book of Jude, wandering stars. So right there, the even word for planet literally means wanderer. So so what we know as the planets are not really planets. They're not gas balls. They're Malachim. They're wandering stars, which we would know as fallen Malachim or fallen angels. And that's really the what's the word I'm looking for? The true cosmos of the world we live in. And the fact of the matter is that the sun goes up and down in our atmosphere, or within the earth we live in. We can see the sun go up and down. The sun's not billions of miles away. The moon is literally on the other side of the sky before the sun even sets. I mean, you can just do observation on your own. You can see that for a sun to be billions and billions and billions of miles away, you wouldn't be able to see it the way we see it. You wouldn't be able to see it literally within our clouds. I mean, there's just observations you can make, and really it makes a lot of sense. So I'm sorry we went on a tangent a little bit, but it's just that's the reality that we live in. We live in, the science that we're taught in school is not real science. It's called scientism. And it's not, because real science goes with the Bible. Real science goes with the Bible. When you read in Revelations that the number of the beast is 666, well, it's interesting to note that the carbon molecule that every human has 6 protons, 6 electrons, and 6 neutrons. So literally, when Yahuwah says, he has his Malachim say to John, this is the number of a man, it is. It's literally a number of a man. So real science goes with the Bible. That's been the misnomer, that Christians have rejected real science because they're confused. They don't know what scientism and science is. Science is one thing, but what they teach in school is a religion of scientism. So that's something whoever's listening should look into, and know the difference between scientism and science. And sorry for rambling on.
Well, the truth is, the reason why they've lied to us about all these things is to hide the Creator, is to make us look like an insignificant little speck in a huge, vast universe, and we're not. We're not insignificant, and we're not a little speck. We are directly under the eyes and surveillance of the Creator. And that is what the flat earth proves. And it's not only flat, but it's under a dome. That's why we have an atmosphere to sustain us, which the evil ones have been working so diligently to destroy. And destroy our food, destroy our water, but that's another topic. But it's all because they don't want us to understand the truth about the Creator and how much He loves us, that we are His children. And if the vast amount of people understood that, they would have no question about, is there a Creator? They would be so glad to know what He has to say, and they would be actually reading this book instead of it sitting on shelves and getting dust. And that's all I want to say about that.
Quick question. Okay, like we were saying, like a third of the waters and a third of the land shall be burned up. Is it going to be consecutively, or is it already starting to happen because of the great fires that we've had here has burned up thousands and thousands of acres?
No, you see, these are definitely consecutive because it's with the blowing of the messengers. The first messenger brings the burned up trees and grass. The second messenger brings the mountain burning with fire that's thrown into the sea, and so on. It's consecutive.
Yeah, I think there's a difference, and it's good to note for anyone listening on this recording or going to see our recording on YouTube that there's a difference between what is happening right here with the trumpets and what happens with the seals. And they're two completely different things. The seals, I personally believe the seals have been being fulfilled throughout time. But with the trumpets and what's happening in this chapter, I think it's specifically for that time period when these trumpets are being blown and it's consecutive. I agree with Shoshana. But I do believe, though, the seals have been being fulfilled, throughout time. Some of the seals have been fulfilled multiple times already with the horsemen of the apocalypse, even though that's like a whole nother discussion. But I'm just saying there's a difference. I believe
Yes.
that the seals are being fulfilled throughout time, but not the trumpets. They're
Great.
so that's where I think people get confused, and I used to get confused because I'd be like, the 7 seals, 7 trumpets. I used to get them a little mixed up. So I just wanted to add that, and whoever wants to take over and read chapter 9, feel free.
I can do it if you like. And the 5th messenger sounded, and I saw a star from the Shemaim, or heaven, which had fallen to the earth, and the key to the pit of the deep was given to it. And he opened the pit of the deep, and smoke went up out of the pit like the smoke of a great furnace. And the sun was darkened, also the air, because of the smoke of the pit. And out of the smoke came upon the earth. And authority was given to them as scorpions of the earth possessed with authority. And it was said to them that they shall not harm the grass of the earth, or anything green, or any tree, but only those men who do not have the seal of Yahuwah on their forehead. And it was given to them that they should not kill them, but to torture them for 5 months. And their torture was like the torture of a scorpion when it stings a man. In those days, men shall seek death and shall not find it, and they shall long to die, but death shall flee from them. And the locusts looked like horses prepared for battle, and on their heads were crowns like gold, and their faces were like the faces of men. And they had hair like women's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth. And they had breastplates like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the sound of chariots with many horses running into battle. And they have tails like scorpions, and stings, and in their tails is their authority to harm men 5 months. And they have over them a sovereign, a messenger of the pit of the deep, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, but in Yawanite he has the name Apollyon. The first woe is past. See, 2 woes are still coming after this. And the 6th messenger sounded, and I heard a voice from the 4th horn of the golden altar, which is before Balaam, saying to the 6th messenger who had the trumpet, release the 4 messengers, those having been bound at the great river Kerith. And the 4 messengers, those having been prepared for the hour and day, month, year, were released to kill 1/3 of mankind. And the number of the armies of the horsemen was 200 million. And I heard the number of them. And this is how I saw the horses in the vision, and those who sat on them having breastplates, fiery red, and tyston blue, and sulfur yellow, and the heads of the horses were like the heads of lions, and out of their mouths came fire, smoke, and sulfur. 1/3 of mankind was killed by these 3, by the fire and the smoke and the sulfur that came out of their mouth. For the authority of the horses is in their mouth and in their tails. For their tails are like serpents, having heads, and with them they do harm. And the rest of mankind, who were not killed by these plagues, did not repent of the works of their hands, that they should not worship the demons, the idols of gold, of silver, and of brass, and of stone, and of wood, which are neither able to see, nor to hear, nor to walk. And they did not repent of their murder, nor of their drug sorceries, nor of their whoring, nor of their theft.
Sad. Very sad. Very sad that they
yeah,
would
no.
not repent.
All that. I mean, the whole reason of all this is for men to repent.
And then for the readers, for the listeners listening in, what type of creatures they're basically describing are hybrids. They're these the dead hybrids of the days of Enoch and Noah are basically the army of the beast. They're basically, his servants that are under him, because it says they had a king over them, the Malachim of the bottomless pit. And to note that in the Greek tongue says Apollyon, and in our English it would probably be Apollo. And you can do some research for yourself, but Apollo is actually Nimrod. He was known as Apollo. He was known as, in the Greek, he had many names also. Zeus, what else? You had Perseus. You had, what's the one they made a movie out of recently, where I'm trying to think of the name. It was like this weird alien movie that had a Greek name to it, and he basically promoted the lie of them seeding mankind. I'm trying to think of the name. It started with a P. Anyway, he's like another false one. Also, you have Hermes, so he's been known by many names. The Egyptians know him as Osiris. So many different names. And actually, Osiris is mentioned in the book of Yashar, interestingly enough. So they actually talk about how pharaohs were created by this guy, and the idea of pharaohs were created by him, unfortunately. And he is the Malachim of the bottomless pit. He's also the one who was but is not, that will come, which is mentioned in Revelations, that he is the anti-Messiah, the beast, the Assyrian. So this guy is somehow now a Malachim, and only speculation can provide an answer on how he became a Malachim. So we do know that he became an abomination himself in Genesis chapter 11, where it's Genesis chapter 10, verse 6, that says that he began to be a giant upon the earth in the Septuagint. So we know that he corrupted himself, and now he is the king of basically these hybrids, these demonic entities that are, being described in Revelations 9. And basically Revelations 9 is talking about, not to worship, they did not repent of worshiping demons or devils. So that's telling you what these statues really are. Statues are demons, and you will find that in the book of Enoch. The book of Enoch talks about, how they taught mankind how to place demons in graven images. So it's funny enough that it actually calls graven images demons in that verse in chapter 9. And Paul even says the nations that sacrifice to their mighty ones sacrifice to demons, not Elohim. So just thought I would bring that up.
Yeah, sounds like they're doing some voodoo there. Learning how to cast demons into idols.
And that's another reason why Yahuwah probably told Yashrael in one of the commandments, don't make a graven image. Because Yahuwah knew that possibly these outer body spirits could inhabit these idols.
That's right.
And
Well,
they will.
as I think it was Paul that said, an idol is nothing, but it attracts evil spirits.
So Yahuwah was doing it for our safety. He wasn't trying to be mean and say, oh, I don't want you to make any statues. Because, I'm just being mean. He's doing it for our protection. He's doing it so we don't attract demons, and we don't attract these fallen Malachim that most likely attach themselves to idols too. And that's why we have so many false deities after the Watchers and their children. And that's how you get all these pagan religions. It's pretty much from the Watchers.
Yeah.
So I think we are, unless anyone has anything else they would like to add, I think we're ready to go to chapter 10. I think that's it. The sorceries is interesting to note for people that wondered how we get drug sorceries from that, because actually the Greek word used for the English sorcery is pharmakeia in the New Testament. So you can look that up in the Strong's Concordance. You can find a Strong's Concordance on blueletterbible.com. You can buy them on amazon.com if you want a physical one, but there's many different websites that have them. There's lexicons and Strong Concordances on biblehub.com. So if you want to look into that, but the actual Greek word is pharmakeia, drug sorcery. So it probably should have been translated as drug sorcery, which Brother Dennis's translation actually had correct. So whoever wants to read chapter 10, we got any takers? Oh, my bad for not putting Sally and Sadie off of mute. My bad about that. It's just I have a hard time hearing them read when everyone's unmuted.
I hear you. Me too, but I'll let you guys read because my eyes are a little funky. My body went into high sugar diabetic stuff and messed with my vision, so I'd prefer not to struggle.
Okay, I got you.
I'm listening, okay? I'm right here.
No problem. Sister Sally, if you would like to read, if not, I could always take over.
Chapter 10?
Yep.
Okay, just a second. I'm sorry, I was eating a late lunch while
Oh, no,
you guys
no problem.
talking.
You don't need to
So just-
apologize.
Thank you, but that's why I'm not at chapter 10. So just one moment and I will be there quickly.
All right.
If you like, Sally, I can read chapter 10 while you eat, and you can take 11.
That sounds like a great idea.
That's all right. I'm already there. Oops, I just dropped my Bible. Okay, just a second. I got to pick it up.
And the reason I'm sharing my screen is just for the for the people that will be watching this recording, so they can follow along, just in case they don't have a Bible and they'll be watching this video. So right now, I'll keep it on the Restored Name King James. I actually like the way it's written right now.
Okay, Revelation chapter 10.
Yep.
And I saw another mighty Malachim coming down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, and a rainbow was on his head. His face was like the sun, and his feet like pillars of fire. And he had a little book open in his hand, and he set his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land, and cried with a loud voice as when a lion roars. And when he cried out, 7 thunders uttered their voices. Now when the 7 thunders uttered their voices, I was about to write, but I heard a voice from heaven saying to me, seal up the things which the 7 thunders uttered, and do not write them. And the Malachim whom I saw standing on the sea and on the land lifted up his hand to heaven, and swore by him who lives forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that are in it, the earth and the things that are in it, and the sea and the things that are in it, that there should be delay no longer. But in the days of the sounding of the 7th Malachim, when he is about to sound, the mystery of Elohim would be finished, as he declared to his servants the prophets. Then the voice which I heard from heaven spoke to me again and said, go take the little book which is open in the hand of the Malachim, who stands on the sea and on the earth. And I went to the Malachim and said to him, give me the little book. And he said to me, take and eat it, and it will make your stomach bitter, but it will be as sweet as honey in your mouth. And I took the little book out of the Malachim's hand and ate it, and it was as sweet as honey in my mouth, but when I had eaten it, my stomach became bitter. And he said to me, you must prophesy again about many peoples, nations, tongues, and kings.
Wow. Interesting. I see a connection with Ezekiel right there. The scroll of Ezekiel, it will make your it will be bitter in your stomach, and it's kind of interesting. So it seems like there's some connection between, Revelations and Ezekiel, and so that might be a book we might have to get into soon. We might have to see what Ezekiel to this chapter.
Quite interesting.
So And another thing to note for first-time people reading along with us in Revelations, when it says waters, waters can be symbolized as peoples. So, like when you eventually will read Revelation 17 and it says she is the one who sits on many waters, the Malachim explained to John that, see, this means this means that. The beasts are kingdoms, the four beasts, and in the book of Daniel, he tells Daniel they are kingdoms. The waters are the great multitudes, the many people that she sits upon. Mountains, this great the seven hills are symbolic. So, and horns are symbolic in prophecy for kings or kingdoms. So there's always like little metaphors in prophecy that can be metaphoric for something. And what I also found interesting in the book of Daniel, connecting to this chapter, it says, seal up the book, for it's a time of the end, and then you shall open it. And it's kind of interesting because John goes to this Malachim that has a book opened. And I just wonder if that possibly could be the same scroll that Daniel was told to shut until the time of the end. I don't know, that was just something I was thinking of.
Very well.
Okay, real quick question. Am I muted? Hello?
No, you're not muted. I didn't have you muted.
Okay. I mute myself too because we're here in the kitchen. When it says that when he ate them and they became bitter in his stomach, what is that significant? What is he saying at that point? And then to that reference on Ezekiel, it was Ezekiel 2:10, I think it talks about it became bitter.
Yeah, the Ezekiel 2:10 I referenced because it's the same terminology, just with Ezekiel instead of John, and the Malachim there, whether it's the same Malachim I don't know, but it tells Ezekiel to eat the scroll, that it will be sweet as honey to his mouth, but bitter in his stomach. So it's like almost the same exact thing, and that's why I referenced Ezekiel. So,
yeah, is it because what's going to come, the bitterness that settles in the stomach because of the really horrific times that are going to come? Not for us, I don't believe, and if we saw them, they wouldn't be as if they would to a person who does not have Yehovah in their heart. But I believe that it would. I mean, it's just the bitterness because of the prophecy. Just wondering.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too good about symbology and stuff like that and what it can mean, like spiritually. When I was reading, I was just thinking about literally that he's probably telling him, even though it's gonna taste sweet to your tongue or whatever, that once it gets to your stomach is gonna be bitter. But I guess the spiritual aspect could be what you're saying, that the contents of the scroll, when it hits his stomach, it could be bitter because of what's going to happen and the judgments and the wrath. Maybe that's what's making his stomach bitter. I don't know. I'm just guessing. I mean, I usually look at that stuff literally, like he's telling him it's going to be bitter once it gets to his stomach. I don't know. That's just how I saw it. I wasn't even thinking on that aspect of what it meant spiritually. I'm glad you brought that up because I wasn't even thinking on that aspect.
Because it's going to be bitter for a lot of mankind. That's a good analogy.
Like wormwood made the waters bitter, which wormwood is, as far as I know, wormwood is false doctrine. Wormwood's like false teaching, and it's even though there's a physical wormwood, there's actually something called wormwood. I forget where I saw that, but it's like an actual physical wood. But sometimes like stuff like wormwood, when it's talking about making someone bitter, it could have a spiritual aspect and could be talking about false teaching and stuff like that. And the Malachim that is called wormwood in the last chapter, many traditionally believed was Halel, and many people believe that was like a nickname given to him in Revelations, that he made the waters bitter. So it could have something to do with false teaching coming from Satan. I've heard that interpretation, that's what wormwood is. I'm not too sure, but I know there's definitely a spiritual aspect to bitterness, and so I guess that's what brought the last chapter up to my mind.
And by the way, it is Ezekiel 3, verses 1 through 4, that talks about the scroll being sweet as honey when Ezekiel ate it. Just want to clarify that. There is no Ezekiel 2:10.
Oh, okay. So let's. I'm gonna read it quick for the audience, and I have it on.
That's in King James.
Yeah, I have.
That was in King James. Yeah. So, sorry.
Yeah, I have a shared screen for it right here, so the audience can see where I'm reading from. Ezekiel chapter 3, verses 1 to 4 says, "And he said to me, Son of man, eat this volume of book, and go and speak to the children of Yashraal. So he opened my mouth and caused me to eat the book, or the scroll, or the volume. And he said to me, Son of man, your mouth shall eat, and your belly shall be filled with this scroll that is given to you. So I ate it, and it was in my mouth as sweet as honey. And he said to me, Son of man, go your way, and go into the house of Yashraal, and speak my words to them." So interestingly enough, from Ezekiel, this is specifically talking about Yahuwah's people, us, saying that Ezekiel's to speak to the house of Yashrael. So, so now obviously back then this was referring to the northern house only, but a lot of the times it can also refer to both north and southern as the house of Jacob, the house of Yashrael. So either way, interestingly enough, the context we get in Ezekiel is talking to Yahuwah's chosen, his people. So it's very interesting. This could tie in what Revelations, that obviously the prophecies of Revelations are for us, his chosen, and for us to know these things. And
Are we ready for
Yep.
chapter 7?
Yep.
Okay, I'll read. And a reed like a rod was given to me, and the messenger stood, saying, Rise and anoint the Mishkan of Elohim, and the altar, and those worshiping in it. But cast out the court which is outside the Mishkan, and do not anoint it, for it has been given to the Gentiles. And they shall trample the Kadesh city underfoot for 42 months. And I shall give unto my 2 witnesses, and they shall nabba 1,260 days, clad in sackcloth. These are the 2 olive trees and 2 lampstands that are standing before the Elohim of the earth. And if anyone wants to harm them, fire comes out from their mouth and consumes their enemies. And if anyone wants to harm them, he has to be killed in this way. These possess authority to shut the Shemayim, so that no rain falls in the days of their Nabuah, and they possess authority over waters to turn them into blood, and to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they desire. And when they have ended their witness, the beast coming up out of the pit of the deep shall fight against them and overcome them and kill them. And their dead bodies lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Mitzrayim, where also our Adon was impaled. And some of the peoples and tribes and tongues and nations see their dead bodies for 3.5 days, and do not allow their dead bodies to be placed into tombs. And those dwelling on the earth rejoice over them and exult, and they shall send gifts to one another, because these two Nebiim, that means prophets, tortured those dwelling on the earth. And after the 3.5 days, a spirit of life from Elohim entered into them, and they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell on those who saw them. And they heard a loud voice from the Shamayim saying to them, "Come up here." And they went up into the Shamayim in a cloud, and their enemies saw them. And in that hour there came to be a great earthquake, and 1/10 of the city fell. And in the earthquake 7,000 men were killed, and the rest became afraid, and gave esteem to the Elohim of the Shamayim. The second woe is past, and see, the third woe is coming speedily. And the 7th messenger sounded, and there came to be loud voices in the Shamayim, saying, "The reign of this world has become that of our master and of his Messiah, and he shall reign forever and ever." And the 24 elders sitting before Elohim on their thrones fell on their faces and worshipped Elohim, saying, "We give you thanks, O Yahuwah Al Shaddai, the one who is and who was and who is coming, because you have taken your great power and reign, and the nations were enraged, and your wrath has come, and the time of the dead to be judged, and to give the reward to your servants, the prophets, and to the Kadoshim, and to those who revere your name, small and great, and to destroy those who destroy the earth." And the Mishkan of Elohim was opened in the Shamayim, and the ark of his covenant was seen in the Mishkan. And there came to be lightnings and voices and thunders, and an earthquake and great hail. There's a lot in that chapter,
Wow.
but it mainly talks about the two witnesses that are coming. And I want to say that if we had already seen the events of the messengers happening, we would have the two witnesses talking about it. And the two witnesses have not yet appeared. We do not know who they are, but we do know they are two men, and their bodies will dwell in Jerusalem for 3 days. 3.5 days they lay there dead and are not allowed to be buried. So they are two men whom we do not know yet. And again, we also haven't seen the man of lawlessness being revealed. So these things have to happen before the revealing of other prophecies can happen. I just wanted to make that statement, and Doug, I'll pass it over to you.
Revelations 11 was pretty much talking about also Yahuwah's kingdom coming. I kind of see it's kind of like a foreshadowing of the millennial, just to add. And it's pretty interesting. It says the third woe comes quickly. So, very interesting. And also, I really like the verse that talks about the earthquake and the so that was pretty interesting. And also verse 15 of Revelations 11 goes along with Daniel chapter 7 verse 18 when it talks about that we will be given the kingdom. And the verse 15 of this chapter says, and the seventh Malachim sounded, there were great voices in heaven saying, the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Elohim and of his Messiah, and he shall reign forever and ever. So that's pretty much a mirror of Daniel 7:18. So I found that interesting. And Shoshana, what translation were you reading from? I'm just curious.
I'm reading the Hallelujah Scriptures.
It's interesting because it's interestingly enough when I hear the Hallelujah Scriptures, the way they I noticed the restored name King James actually puts Yahuwah's name back in some places where they were putting Elohim in yours. So I found that.
I know, and they used Adon and.
Yeah, like I think one of the verses, let me see if I can go here real quick. It says, I think it says of our master, but mine says Elohim in 15. And let's see, the verse 19 for me does not say Elohim, and actually says Yahuwah, and the temple of Yahuwah was opened in heaven. So I just saw some interesting differences. And
Like yours better.
I think the restored name King James actually honors his name a little bit more, which is interesting. So
they were going to make a new King James. They were going to put all the names back in. I don't know if that's the one you're talking about.
This one is called the Restored Name King James. It's basically the 1611 King James with Yahuwah's name back in it, and they use the pronunciation of Yahushua. So the only really mistake they made was not using Yahusha instead of Yahushua, but that's not a big deal to me.
Right.
They do, though, fix certain places where it says Easter instead of Passover. They fix that verse in the Restored Name King James. They fix like certain little errors that the original 1611 had, like the Trinity verse. They fixed that one. So,
what did they do for the Trinity? Because the Trinity is very,
Yeah, the King James actually is the only translation that says three bear witness in heaven, the Holy Ghost, the Father, and the Word. And that's where people get the Trinity doctrine. And really, in the original Textus Receptus, those words weren't in that verse at all. You can
great practitioner. You better not put that on Walter Martin's question and answers.
Yeah.
You'll flip it upside down.
I actually found that information out from the eSword Bible app because they have the Treasury for Scriptural Knowledge little dictionary journal. So it tells you like the history of certain manuscripts, and the Textus Receptus, the original one, did not have that verse saying that. The word in heaven was not in that original version of the verse. and also the Holy Ghost was not there, Father and Word was not there. Most translations actually translated that three bear witness: the water, the blood, and the Spirit, meaning that. And I like how the New Living Translation translates that verse in the 1 John, where it says that there's three witnesses. The blood, meaning, he shed his blood for us, the water, the baptism, and, the Spirit. So it's definitely been a translation that was mistranslated by King Jimmy, unfortunately. And that's why people started believing in the Trinity doctrine.
Okay, this is what I had heard a long time ago coming out. Probably Shoshana, when I was with Ralph, that they had said that in order for it to be like an acceptable King James version, the king said that he had to have a name of a book named after him, and that's where the book of James, Yaakov, came from, because that was in reference to the King James at that time. And like he gave his seal of signature, or what do you call it? Signet
ring and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. To say, this is a write-on book. This is my book. This is, I'm giving it full authority to go out there for all the churches to accept and start teaching out of it. And, but I have to have a book named after me, which was Yaakov in the new British, the British, you know what I mean? How do you call it? British, the
Brit Hadashah.
Oh, no, Besorah. Yeah, the Besorah. I'm sorry, the Besorah, right? Is that the New Testament, right? The Besorah.
The New Testament, I think, is actually Brit Hadashah, means
there you go.
New or renewed covenant is
right. Brit, yeah.
And the I think the other one you just said was for the good news, the gospel is the other one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, the Besorah.
I can't confirm that. Maybe Shoshana can confirm whether that's true. I do know that King Jimmy obviously changed Jacob's name to James. We know that, but we really don't know for fact the reason. I would think it's to probably deify himself. I would think.
Yes, that's kind of. I don't know if they had given us information on that in some written words, scriptures that were out there that was. Something through maybe the Catholic Church or something that he had said, I got to have a book named after me, and I will decree that this is the word,
Yeah.
So I had heard something like that when I first came across. So I don't know. I've never really looked into it, but it's always stood with me. Sometimes we hear things that we don't know, and until later they flourish in our mind. So that was one thing I didn't look into, but it's maybe worth looking into.
Every restored name translation actually restores it back to Jacob. The scriptures 1998 do it. The restored name King James, my Yahuwah Bible edition, which you can get at Walmart for like $29, pretty much puts his name back to Jacob also. Pretty much all of them show that, and you can look up in the concordance for proof. Like if people say, oh, that's not true, the Strong's concordance actually shows that the Hebrew name is Yaakov, and James, there's no way James is a translation for Yaakov. So
exactly.
Once you look that up, you can realize, oh yeah, it should have been Jacob. And the same thing with Jude. They weren't honest with that translation either. It should have been Judah or Yehuda.
Right.
So it's interesting. Yahusha's two half-brothers are the two houses.
Oh, isn't that?
So you have Judah and you have Yashrael or Jacob. And so you have the two houses as the names of his two half-brothers. So I found that pretty interesting when I found that out.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that, I mean, it's just, well, in our English alphabet, isn't it? Y sometimes I sometimes Y, and then when we come to just completely changing a J to try to make it into an I, there's no reference to that. That was just an add-on. That was just let's add this to the
The
dictionary.
J wasn't even a letter back then. What they did was they took a little hook, like how you have a hook on a fishing pole. They literally put a hook on the I and made it J. So that was like an addition to our English language. And I heard, I don't know if this is true or not, I heard the reason they use I instead of Y was supposedly in the Greek, there was no Y. Now that's what I've heard. I don't know if that's true or not. I heard when the New Testament was composed in Greek, that there was no Y, so that's why they have I. And that's why the Tyndale for Yahuwah has an I instead of a Y. And it's funny, the Tyndale Bible actually has his name in it. So that's another resource I love to use when people say, "Oh no, Lord is an English translation." I'm like, well, why is Yahuwah's name in the Tyndale Bible as, I.e. Hua, basically? So they actually have it in an English translation. It's not until the King James that it changed into Jehovah.
Yeah.
So.
And isn't it I hear that Hova means something that's not good. Is that correct?
There's a Hebrew word, hova, that means destruction, supposedly.
Right.
That's what I've heard, that it means destruction, to destroy.
Right. I heard too.
So it's interestingly enough, I think, I don't know if in most Christian commentaries, you have Apollyon, meaning they admit that Apollyon means destroyer. So
yeah,
that's where maybe that's where Jehovah came from. It came from Apollyon, because that's what that name Apollyon means.
Wow, what a trip! Yeah.
The wicked ones are trying to turn our true creator into the God of destruction, and he is not.
Hallelujah.
Nope. So let's see. Does Sally have anything she wants to add? If not, I think we can go into the next chapter, which would be 12.
Sally, do you have anything to add?
I was just enjoying listening to you guys.
Oh, okay. All right. So I guess I will read 12. And this is one of my favorite chapters in Revelations. So let me just get my shared screen back on here. And here we go. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his heads. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. Sounds familiar. And she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto Yahuwah and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared of Yahuwah, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his Malachim fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his Malachim, and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceives the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his Malachim were cast out with him. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength and kingdom of our Elohim and the power of his Messiah. For the accuser of our brother is cast down, which accused them before our Elohim day and night. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto the death. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knows that he has but a short time. And when the dragon saw that he was cast unto the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man child. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time from the face of the serpent. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, and he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And the dragon was angry with the woman and went to make war with the remnants of her seed, which keep the commandments of Yahuwah and have the testimony of Yahusha the Messiah. And that is the end of Revelations 12.
Woohoo!
Wow.
Hallelujah.
And this, obviously, this prophecy has multi layers in it. It's obviously, around that time period, it was almost like a flashback with the first part of the prophecy. You have Satan using Herod to try to kill Yahusha as soon as he's born, and Miriam and Joseph went into a type of wilderness in Egypt to flee away from Herod. So you have that first part of the prophecy being fulfilled in that time period, but this is also a duo prophecy that it will happen again, but in a different way, that a woman in prophecy, as you read in Revelations, and you'll continue to read, that a woman can symbolize the assembly. And so the woman represents us metaphorically. We're the bride, we're the assembly, we're the body of Messiah, so on and so forth. So when you see a woman, usually it can also be metaphoric and also talk about a body of believers, whether good or bad. You have another woman in Revelation 17 that's a harlot assembly.
Right.
So you have, so it goes both ways. So, right here, this is talking about us, stuff. It's talking about that she will have to flee into the wilderness. And to Shoshana's credit, it says that this time, instead of running into the wilderness, that we most likely will be carried by Yahusha's Malachim, eagle's wings. I mean, usually wings refer to the messengers, the Malachim, usually. And Yahusha, I think in Matthew, I forget the exact chapter and verse, but Matthew says that his Malachim will gather his chosen, his elect from the 4 corners of the earth. So.
Another thing I want to emphasize or bring out is the fact that it says the woman has a place prepared for her, a place, not multiple places, not a place here and there and scattered all around. No, there's one place where all of Yahuwah's people are to be gathered at this time when it is time for them. And I've heard so much on the internet about people going to the wilderness and trying to fulfill the scripture on their own. And this is not what it's about. This is to be fulfilled by Yahuwah when he chooses to do it. It is in his time frame that he will gather his elect from the 4 corners of the earth and bring them together. He will send his Malachim pick us up. And you do have to be counted worthy for this, because in Luke 21, verse 36, it tells us that we are to watch and pray always, that we might be counted worthy to escape all this about to happen on the earth, and to stand before Yahushua HaMashiach ben Ha'adam, which is the Son of Man, son of Adam. So we stand before him, and like I said before, it is one place. It is not a few here, a few there. And those who are moving out to places in the wilderness now, I believe it was Sadie that was telling us earlier that they're having hardships beyond belief. Now is not the time. Yahuwah is going to fulfill this in his time. That's all I wanted to add.
Yeah, and we haven't gotten there yet in Revelations, but he actually he literally himself will call us out. Just hypothetically speaking, if we were to move on our own and he wanted us to literally physically run out of Babylon, he actually in Revelations 18:4 says, "Come out of her, my people." And before he says that, the Malachim says, I think it's actually John that says it. He says, "I heard a loud voice coming from heaven saying, 'Come out of her, my people, that you do not share of her transgressions and of her plagues.'" So at that moment, he calls us out. He's not going to call us out beforehand. It's his timing, not ours. I want to really stress that. It's
Yeah.
not how we want to do things.
And how else would we get to one place, all of his people? I mean, there are thousands of us worldwide that have to be gathered, and we could not go to this one place on our own. We have to be taken there by Yahuwah's messengers. So that's the only way we're going to get there.
I think that the same way possibly that he led the people out of Egypt, or Mitzrayim, that he will also make a way for us, because our minds and our thoughts and our understanding are not like his. So he can make a pathway so clear for his people, like the word says, for those who keep his covenant, those who keep his, what was that earlier you had read, his testimony, his instructions. Those are the people that he's returning for to make a way, and the rest that make it is going to be very difficult. There will be some that will be able to make it during that time, but because we are his people and promised, he will cover us and take care of us and lead us through that path. And I believe just like Moses was used, I'm sure that we don't have to have a Moses anymore, because we hear his voice and he will call us and he will lead us out into wherever he wants us to go. And he will make that flight something that is supernatural. May I use that word, not saying it to be witchcrafty, but it's going to be something that we have not seen yet. You know what I mean? We have not seen a supernatural. We have not seen a serpent swallow, two serpents. We have not seen the Red Sea open up. We've seen our own miracles, which we know that are only that Yahuwah has delivered us in those times of need that he's been there. But to literally say we've all together seen the Red Sea open up, or a plague of frogs fall before us, or the burning bush up on the hill, those kinds of things I think we're yet to see. but what we have seen, I'm not going to discredit. There's just no way that I could discredit the things that he's delivered me from. And he's amazing. But at those days, I'm not moved anymore. Before I was moved by fear. And once, Yahuwah would not let me go forward. He put me in this dumb, procrastinated stage. Thank you, Yahuwah. And it was his covering, because he knew that I would do anything once I found out his name. And I was in a pretty deep group that was, asking us to come live with them, come be with them, come move out, sell all our stuff here and go with them. And that turned out to be a den of wolves. And the Father just didn't let me go forward, and I think that to my husband was the weight that wouldn't let me, he wasn't going anywhere. So, there was a lot of things, because, babies in learning about this, it can easily put on some fear. But, the fear that we should have is the fear of sinning, not of what's to come, because he said he would deliver us. And he will be the path for our escape. So, I just kind of think that we're all going to, I don't know how he's going to do it, but we're going to know. We're going to know as we keep pressing into him and hiding his word in our hearts, that we're going to know. I'm going to give you an experience that I had that was very, very difficult. I don't know if I shared this before or not, but this is how prepared for some part of it. I know that I'm there, from this point of view. We were going up to the mountain. We call it the mountain. That's where we do Sukkot, and that's where some of our brothers, our Mishpachah, live. And so as we were going up to the mountain, it's an almost Nathan, a 2-hour drive, huh? Yeah. It's a 2-hour drive. So we were already into an hour of our drive. And my grandson played this I did not know. It was the siren where the whole earth hears it, right? And I'm driving, and it's breaking news. It's a siren. It's get out of LA within 1 hour because there's a bomb threat coming, blah, 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 blah. And it basically was a pretty heavy message, right? And so I just kept on driving, and I didn't really make any movement or anything. I'm just listening to it as I'm driving, and all I'm thinking is in my heart that the word said, do not go back. You do not go back you don't go back, period. So I'm just still driving, because we're on our way to Shabbat, and I'm like, I'm going to go be with my brothers and sisters. I'm not turning back. So my grandson said, he goes, Grandma, did you hear that? Are you okay, Grandma? And I'm like, I'm fine. I go, you know what, mijo? I ain't turning back. I'm not going back home. I said, whatever happens at home, happens at home. They're going to have to figure it out, because the word said, do not turn back, do not go back. If you're breastfeeding, don't go back for your baby. We're going forward. And he goes, are you scared? And I go, what's there to be scared about? There's nothing to be scared about. We just know that these things are going to happen. And if it's, what do? We just keep pressing forward. I'm not afraid, because I know that these things are going to happen. And I knew, and I've read this before. And he goes, Grandma, but how about your mom? How about you? I go, you know what? They're going to have to figure it out. I'm not going back, period. And he kept trying to get me to turn my head to go back. I said, you know what, mijo? I'm sorry. They've heard the word. They know the word. Then they would do the same thing that I'm doing right now, if they know their word. If they're going to do, but they have had plenty of time to believe in this. They've had the time. They've heard it all their lives in church. They've heard it from me, whatever have you. I'm pressing forward. And he goes, wow. He goes, Grandma, I can't believe that. I cannot believe you wouldn't go back. I go, sorry. This is it. This is me and you, mijo. I go, we're the one that chose to come to Shabbat. We're the ones that are coming this way. We're going to go with our Mishpachah, and we're going to figure it out once we get there. And he goes, wow, Grandma, I'm proud of you. I'm impressed. And I go, why? And he goes, because that was just it's like a joke that hit us, that hit me earlier this morning. And I played it for Grandma, my mom, and my daughter. And he goes, they were running around like crazy. Call your mom, call this, call that. And they were going nuts. And I go, see, they're not ready. This is what's going to happen. If you're not ready to hear this devastating news, it sounded real. It sounded really real that LA was going to get hit. Get out of LA within 1 hour because what's his name, threatened to send a bomb our way. So it sounded very real. There was no two ways about it. But what I'm trying to say is that we know these things are going to happen. And how are we going to handle these things when we hear this? This recording that my grandson played for me was as real as you can get. That's how it sounded. And I thought, wow, it's here. It's time. You know what I mean? My mind was, Father, away for them. Father, help them out. And my heart was just going, that was one thing that I was thinking in my heart, but I'm not turning back. If he told me, if he has me out this far, I ain't going back. The only thing that I regretted was that I didn't have my bug out bag with me. That was the only thing I regretted. But this is kind of where we have to be, where it does not bother us. It does not bring fear upon us. It does not doesn't move our belief in him, because he's already warned us. He's already given us the biggest bug out bag that we need, and that's his word, to lean on it, and to know that 10,000 might fall at our right side, or another 1,000 on the other side. I don't know how that goes, but that's where we understand that we're going to see some things, possibly whoever's left here, things that we're not going to like, things that are going to be, wow. But what we got to remember, what the scripture says, in our mind and our heart, that we're going to be able to walk right straight through this. And it's not going to be fearful. It's not going to be something that I think maybe it's just going to confirm who we are in him, because he's the one that's been teaching us and warning us all these years. Like some people say, I've been hearing the end of the world to come for, since I was a little girl. My grandma used to put the fear. Oh, well, that means we're that much closer, right? So the prophecies are coming to life, and things that we're seeing in Israel are now starting to happen. So maybe it'll take another 10, 20 years from now. I don't know. Only Abba knows how long the timing is going to be, because he's long suffering, not like us. We want it now, today, and the Father, is waiting for that last person. He's more gracious than we can even imagine. I say kill him. He said give him time to repent. Somebody who does wrong, just chop his head off, get him out of here. Don't worry about it. That's my thought about it. For, child molesters, murderers that take innocent lives. My thought is, what? Don't let them suffer the rest of their life, either for the memory of what they've done, or if they have a heart or they don't have a heart. Just let them start over somewhere else. Let them repent and start over. Let them get them out of here. But, that's kind of how I think, because the damage that's done upon people who have been perpetrated upon is a lifetime. Sometimes it's a lifetime issue. And you got to get a grip of it, because only Abba can help you to understand all the bad things that happen to you in your life. And he's the one that gives you the shalom to deal with it and to be better. But regardless, I just kind of think that, we as his children, he chose us as his chosen children, or sons and daughters better. We don't have to fear. We don't have to worry. When we see these things happening, we know that we're that much closer. And that we think there's beautiful things here on this earth. We haven't seen anything yet. That up a lot. You know what I mean?
The story you just related, Sadie, reminds me so much of what we heard happened when the War of the Worlds was read as a radio play. And people were so fearful. They were leaving their homes and they were going here, there, and everywhere. And it was just a radio
Yeah, I think I don't know if that's the same one I heard, but it was just
play. No, you're too
3
young to heard it.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, this one was just 3 months ago. With that, 3 months ago. Yeah, so it was like, I don't care. I'm moving forward. I ain't turning back. That's what I said to myself. I said, you know what? It's time, I guess, you know. And I thought, wow, you know, and you know, be encouraged, family. Be encouraged because we have his. He dwells within us. And as we press in and keep his commandments and his feast days and his set apart moedim, all these things, and we keep him part of our lives before anything and anybody, we're going to be okay. We're going to be just great. We're looking forward to that time. This is the I guess we would be looking forward to is the marriage supper, you know, is being married and maybe being his bride. I don't know who his bride is completely. There's just so many that are going to be his bride. But even if I'm in the court, I don't care as long as I'm there. You know what I mean? You know, there's brothers and sisters that have suffered and been beheaded and have gone through things more so than I have gone through. You know, by all means, you know, Abba Yahuwah just Baruch them. You know, Baruch them because they died unto death, not fearing and being beheaded or burned or feathered or tarred or tortured to no end. You know, I don't know. Those are the brides that he's talking about. I still don't. Sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. But I'm trying wholeheartedly to be a bride. And if not, a bridegroom is good enough for me. As long as I'm there with him and I can see him. I would love to be a bride, but I missed the mark quite a bit.
The important thing people need to remember is you're not going to be protected unless you are guarding his commandments and have the testimony of Yahushua HaMashiach.
Hallelujah.
And that cuts out 95% of all Christians and 95% of all Jews. And there's a place where we have to come together. Jewish people, you have the law, you have Torah, you have half of the equation, but you need a Mashiach. And Christians, you have a Mashiach, but you need Torah. It's so important that we have both. And if we can love one another enough to learn from one another, Jews come to the Christians to learn about Messiah. Christians come to the Jews to learn about Torah. And then we all meet in the middle and we have truth. And I don't know why this can't be done, why it hasn't been done.
It's not that complicated either. And this goes out to all Christians and Jews. The law is Messiah. It's not separate. Yahushua says, I am the truth, the way, the life. When he says the truth, all you have to do is a simple math equation. What is defined as the truth in Scripture? Psalms 119, 142. Your law is truth. Yahushua's telling you he is the living commandments. He is the living law. If Christians and Jews could just understand they need to come out of their false man-made religions and they need to come into the true Hebraic messianic faith. They need to come out of these false religions. That's the problem, is that they're trusting in man to give them the truth. when man is fallible, man's not going to give you the whole truth. He's not going to tell you that the law is Messiah and the Messiah is the law, and they're one and the same. So it's impossible to have the law without Messiah. It's impossible to have Messiah without the law because they're one and the same. He says, you know, if you don't believe Moses' writings, you're not going to believe me. Okay? So
Right.
he's actually saying right there, he's Moses' writings. He's actually making himself synonymous. There's so many times where he's making himself synonymous, and all the way through the New Testament, the book of First John tells you that if you say you know him but you don't keep his commandments, you are a liar. The truth is not in you. So meaning that it's ridiculous
Amen.
to say that you believe in him and not keep his commandments, because you're not believing in him if you're not keeping his commandments. You're not really trusting in him. There's no faith there. It's dead. Like Jacob says, you know, I can show you my faith by my works. Let's see if you can show me your faith only, but I'll give you my faith just by showing you my works. So it's synonymous with one another. The works follow the faith. The fruit follows the root. And you can't have one without the other. So if Christians and Jews could just understand that Yahusha is the law, he is the Torah, he is the commandments, and he literally took our curse. He took our curse and nailed it to the stake, not the commandments. He took our curse, which is in Deuteronomy 30. And Deuteronomy 30 says that if you do not keep these words of this law, you will be cursed. And Yahuwah lists all the curses. Yahusha took them and nailed them to the tree. And that's what he took for us. He didn't take the law to nail it to the cross.
And here's how it works. We keep the law the best we can, but we stumble. And that's where Yahusha comes in, because we have to go to him. Actually, we go to the Father through him and come under his blood when we confess our sins and ask for forgiveness in the name of HaMashiach. And it's so simple, a child could understand. You ask for forgiveness, the Father is faithful to forgive. And because of what Yahusha Messiah did, it's already there for you. The forgiveness is already there. And please, Christians, if you will read Matthew 5, verses 17 through 19, that contradicts everything that your current teachers are telling you. It says, "Do not think I came to destroy the Torah or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to complete it, to fulfill, to restore, to be the Torah." He is the Torah.
And that Greek word actually does not mean fulfill. It actually means fully proclaim, fully preach, because that same Greek word is used in the book of Acts, and they actually translate it correctly when it refers to what Paul is saying, fully proclaim the gospel. But yet they mistranslate it and put fulfill, which that Greek word never meant fulfill. It meant fully preach it, fully proclaim the law. And, you know, and now that we know what the law is and who the law is, if you really put that definition into that verse, it won't even make sense. So he's going to destroy himself. Like, if he's the living law, the living commandments, the living word, his name is the word of Yahuwah. That means everything that came from his mouth, that's what Yahusha is. That's his identity. then he can't destroy himself. So it wouldn't even make sense for people to believe that. It's, and that's the problem. We've been told the lie that the law and the Messiah are two completely different things when they're not. And that's why I would encourage people, Jews, Christians, atheists, whoever comes by this, that, like always accept the gospel. John 3:16, read John 3:16 and really meditate on that. Meditate on what love Yahuwah has done to make us, to change us to his children, that we might become sons of the living Elohim, and that we might be his children, and that he would give his only begotten son, that we might be saved and not perish. So I think with that, it is getting a little late. I would like to end this recording, and we can do a closing prayer, if that's okay with everyone. All right.
Yeah.
Let me just stop the recording here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I'm sorry we have to end it so quickly, but tune in next time, and we will be continuing the book of Revelations. We will be starting chapter 13. This is Doug signing off with Sister Shoshana, Brother Dennis, Sister Sally, and Sister Sadie. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Shalom.
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 Shabbat shalom.
All right.
Shalom.